Well, we're back. Welcome back to Real American Blue, Donut Eaters, Blue Falcons, and Badge Bunnies. Hey, we know you're out there. You're watching. Put away your glazed power rings and get ready. Rich,
Good afternoon, Curly. How are you?
it's been a little bit. You weren't on the last show, so
No, I missed last week's show due to a commitment, and hopefully we won't have many interruptions in the future. But
that'll be
welcome to this
good.
November 16th. We have a great afternoon with Joe and Alicia Holmes. They're with Heal the Hero Foundation. It's a nonprofit organization that helps public safety individuals. So I'm going to let Joe or Alicia, whoever is the elected individual there, take it away, introduce the foundation. It's a nonprofit organization that survives on donations and grants. So we'd like to get their word out to help them and help officers and first responders out there.
No, I thank you for the introduction. Yeah, we're Heal the Hero. We're, as you said, a 501c3, a nonprofit, and we've been around 10 years. We started back in 2015. And what we do is we provide funding for brain performance programs involving neurofeedback, biofeedback, and coaching. And we have a service provider that does that for us. We're the funding agent, we're the oversight folks. And we originally got involved in this way back when I had interactions with the CEO of our service provider. I spent a career in finance industry as a banker.
Oh, great.
And I had met him, and he told me about the work that their organization, Vitania Brain Performance, was doing that was getting amazing results with different groups of clients that they're working with. And over a lunch meeting, he suggested to me that this might be really effective working with first responders and military veterans. Fast forward a little bit, we started doing some pilot programs. There's basically a 6-month program with veterans, and we had incredible outcomes and results. And so we kind of did these one at a time as we got funding. It's hard, as you know, to get an organization like this off the ground. And as the funding came through, we would do these individual programs. We were fortunate enough to get a program funded through the governor's office in Arizona to provide a larger group of individuals through. It was a Mesa Police Department, Tempe Fire Department, Tempe Police, and
PCSO.
Pinal County Sheriff's Office to experience the program. Again, we had the same kind of tremendous outcomes. And that gave us a lot of experience that we didn't have before because we're getting to work with bigger groups of people. That was probably the next one.
That was 2020, right?
Yeah. And then it led into a large statewide grant, federally funded through the governor's office in the state of Arizona to provide funding through Heal the Hero for, thousands of first responders in Arizona. And the program is overseen by a clinical psychologist, got typical clinical measurements of outcomes, so we know the program works. And so basically what we've been able to do is take this program to over 100 agencies in Arizona. That's police, fire, sheriff's office. And that program is going to be wrapping up first quarter of next year. While we're doing that, we've also had programs across the country. We've got one with New Jersey State Police, Prince George's County, Maryland Sheriff's Office, numerous agencies in Texas, including Dallas Police Department, San Antonio Police Department. And just as we are able to raise money, guys, that we go ahead and go out and we look for opportunities to connect with and partner with agencies to see if we can provide funding for these programs that we found to be very effective and very helpful for their people.
Well, I'm going to throw it on your plate, and maybe you can ask questions down the road in the program here. But I was one of the individuals that participated in the Vitania studies.
Okay.
And I found it awesome. I've had a bad memory since I've been younger. I don't think that's going to change. I can multitask without an issue whatsoever. So I don't think there was anything there. But the sleep, I went from, oh gosh, I'm going to give it the high 4 hour sleep to 8 to 10 hours of sleep now.
Yeah, that's
Um,
fantastic.
yeah, I don't know how things work, but I can tell you the sleep portion of that study worked for me because I'm always on the go. Really can never shut down, but I can tell you I went from again 4 hours sleep to 8 to 10 hours sleep.
That's great.
That's excellent. Yeah, that's what
So,
we hear a lot, right? And then when the sleep starts happening, then other things, resiliency, memory, recall, initiation, those executive functions start to, be noticed, I guess. A lot of times executive functions are like a tricky thing, I think, that people don't really notice it until it's not there. But when it starts to improve, they don't really notice that they're planning better, they're executing on that plan better. It's just so they're subtle changes that people don't notice, but people do definitely notice the sleep.
oh, it was a definite notice for me. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and what I don't think most civilians understand is just how highly resilient first responders are. By and large, first responders are in that line of work because it's kind of the people that they are, and that they already have high levels of resilience. They're able to withstand a whole lot more than, in our opinion, your average civilian walking down the sidewalk can withstand. And they're really good at just coping, getting up every day, going back to work. We had a great meeting with the guys at Phoenix Fire Department. Was it Friday morning?
Friday morning,
yeah. And they're fine examples of the guys just get up and you could deal with who knows what you're dealing with on the last shift, and guess what? You're going to get up the next day and you're going to do it again.
Yep.
Do it again and again. And then what we see a lot with our first responders is just that cumulative effect of trauma, repetitive trauma, over and over again over the course of a career. And something that we learned just this week is, just the tones. If you've got a call, you've got that tone coming through. That tone is going to trigger certain things in anybody, right? And so that's something that those of us who are civilians never even think about. But as soon as you hear that tone, boom, you're all of a sudden you're in go mode, right? You're responding. And what you guys are incredibly good at responding and dealing with a crisis. But maybe it's not so easy when that crisis is passed, and then you've got that downtime.
And sometimes, as first
I have a
responders,
question.
Yeah.
Oops.
go ahead.
I had a question. Why don't you tell us your backgrounds prior to getting involved in this foundation and doing these types of things for first responders?
Excellent. Do you want me to go or you want to go?
You go first, then I'll jump in.
Okay.
Ladies first.
Ladies first. So obviously Joe and I are married. Joe and Alicia Holmes. I have a very varied background, but always service oriented. I grew up very non-traditionally. My parents were kind of gypsies. I grew up in a bus, moving around the country. My dad was in construction and he hated to work in extreme temperatures. So we just moved to wherever the weather was nicest at the time. And then I spent a lot of time in the construction industry, commercial construction and reconstruction, fire water. And then I decided I wanted to make a change and I wanted to go into the nonprofit world. So I got a job at Mesa United Way in Mesa, Arizona. And I started out as just a fundraiser and became the vice president of fundraising at Mesa United Way. And then Joe had a partner at the beginning. Heal the Hero was really Lou Schwartz's brainchild, and Joe and Lou knew each other, and Joe had a specific skill set in operations and banking and finance that could be useful. And but unfortunately, Lou passed away in late 2021, right before the big grant came through. We got the grant in 2022. And so Joe needed some help because it was just Joe. And he needed some help to execute this large grant that we received. So I came from United Way and started working with Joe in just making communications with departments and kind of operations side of making sure the terminals were installed, because this program is such that it's most convenient if we can put it in the fire department or the police department or the sheriff's department, so people don't have to travel to another place. And so that was really my job, is making the connections with different first responding agencies, and then finding locations to install it, and then working with our provider, Britannia, to get those terminals installed. So I'm kind of a project manager. That in my heart, that's what I am. And so that's kind of my background, but always service. I've always been in the service industry, service oriented, always helping people. And so it just made sense. And we don't have necessarily first responder backgrounds, but both of our fathers were veterans.
Nice.
And so Heal the Hero started early with veterans, working with veterans. And so that was the first group of people that Heal the Hero really served, and then moved into the first, police and fire. And so Joe's dad is a retired 2-star Air Force fighter pilot. And my dad fought in World War II, and, he was in the South Pacific, and you can imagine what he saw. And so my dad always suffered with PTSD from that. Like, he had night terrors and tremor all through till he died in his 80s. Those things just never went away. And so that always stuck with me, that he still struggled with the things that he had saw and done during World War II. So those things really stuck with me, and that's why this has always been a love of ours.
Yeah, for me, I had over a 25-year career in banking, and some other business ventures as well. And I had some nonprofit background through working with nonprofits in the East Valley here in the Phoenix metro area. And so I got to kind of learn how they work, served on various boards, executive boards, that kind of thing. And I have a strong administrative background, finance background. And so it seemed like I was, when I met with Lou Schwartz and with Mike Southworth, who's the CEO of Britannia Brain Performance, we felt like we had the perfect mix of talents, backgrounds, skill sets to make this dream come true. This wasn't my idea. They had the idea prior to me being introduced. And so when I kind of came in the picture, that was a Friday. We had lunch Monday. We decided to go ahead and move forward with this. And you do this kind of thing when you don't know better, because if you knew better, you wouldn't do it, because it's just too hard. It's too hard. But we all had, as Alicia said, we all had a heart of service. I grew up, as Alicia said, with my dad. I grew up in a Cold War kid, Vietnam era. And I just grew up just loving our country, loving the military, loving those who serve. So it's just something that's just kind of baked into who we are. So when we were provided with this opportunity to jump in, we did so. And we just have a love for those who serve us. It's just like when we were driving back from our appointments on Friday, we said, this is the absolute best part of what we do. We love being able to spend time with our first responders, because we just love them. They're amazing people. And we just feel energized after we've had an opportunity to spend time with them.
Awesome. Alicia, you had mentioned placing yourselves inside public safety agencies. Could you explain that process, and is there a cost to them, and how does it transpire after that?
Yeah. There is a cost. Generally, Heal the Hero will work with the department, and we will commit to a certain number of what we call scholarships or programs. Okay. And so we'll pay for the terminal to be installed, and then specific number of programs.
What a terminal does.
So a terminal just allows our provider, Britannia, to connect it. All of it is teleremote. Yep. So there's a computer and a hand cradle that the first responder can communicate via Zoom and with the coach, the Britannia coach, and then the technology is there. The coach runs the technology through the computer on Zoom, the neurofeedback. And then there's a zero gravity chair and a headset, which is the biofeedback portion of it. So we do install those we have just done, especially with the state grant, we we really worked hard at making it available to as many people as possible. And I had a friend, and her husband was a DPS officer near, what is that town with the flying saucer? Denny's.
Gila Bend.
Gila Bend. He was a DPS officer in Gila Bend. And I had been to his office, and it was basically a trailer on the side of the road. And I knew that there was never going to be space for DPS because you just have these trailers all over. And so in my mind, I was thinking, if we're going to get able to serve DPS, we've got to get terminals that are shared. And that's hard to do with like Phoenix PD or Phoenix Fire. There's just a lot of security and controls. But when you get a little more rural, those organizations are used to working together, right? Fire and PD and the sheriff's department, they work together a lot. And so I would try to find a location that all three of those agencies could access along with DPS. And so we worked really hard. So we have 7 churches, we have 7 community centers. Fire departments are great because the newer fire departments have like these outside rooms where you code in, and then there's like an anti-room, I would call it. So you have like an exam room and maybe a bathroom, and then there's another door with another coded or badge that the firefighters' living quarters are behind. A lot of fire departments let us use that first room, the anti-room, wherever the exam table was, because they only use that a few times a year when they're doing physicals. But other than that, it's just kind of an empty room. So we could put it in there, and then they would give the code to any first responder to access it. And so it really helped us. We eventually installed 91 stations statewide. We're in 13 of 15 Arizona counties, which we were pretty excited about. And it just allowed all these departments to participate, even if they didn't have room in their stations.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah, kind of. It's kind of interesting because we all lived through COVID. And actually, our team was in Washington, D.C. the day the government shut down for COVID. And on the flight back from Washington, D.C., that's when our partner at Vitania, CEO, had an idea to go mobile and to take this from what had been just brick and mortar. You had to go to an office, just like a regular wellness or medical type appointment, to figure out how to distribute this via teleremote technology. That led us to like a pilot we did in Eastern Montana at a college that I went up to Eastern Montana, the most rural part of the United States, 251 miles to the closest Walmart, if that tells you anything. And we did a pilot program working with veterans in Eastern Montana to see, would this work if we didn't have a brick and mortar office with technicians on site, that kind of thing. It worked amazingly well, same kind of outcomes and results. So we knew at that time we can really expand our reach. We don't have to rely on brick and mortar, because the way this program works, it's over 24 weeks, and participants have 36 sessions working with a brain performance coach. That's a lot of times to go to an office. But if we can set these neuroterminals up remote, so somebody can just walk down the hall and go in and spend 10 minutes for their appointment, 15 at the most, and they're done, then that makes it much more sustainable and something these very busy, first responders can access. We've also found a way just to put everything in a box and ship it. So if we've got somebody, say in rural South Carolina that we fund a program for, we can just ship the equipment to them as long as they have a connection and connect with our provider via Zoom. We can do have the program delivered through our provider to them, no matter where they are. So that was really a game changer for us. So there's really no kind of limits on what we can do as far as helping people, no matter where they are.
I got a question on it. There's certain in law enforcement, which is part of the first responder community, and we jokingly say first responder, all the rest are second responders. But a lot of times in law enforcement, there's an ego involved, there's other things, there's the guys you work with. And when you start doing things, like this, it sets off little bells and whistles to the other guys. Hey, there's something wrong with Billy over there. And that's what that guy was talking about. And that Adam Myers guy, he says that
Yeah.
there's a lot of denial that cops have because they don't think anything's wrong. And if they bring it up, they will be put on the rubber gun squad. They'll be pulled off the street, put in property or wherever. And, you know, what are you guys kind of doing to get past that? And then the other thing is, you might want to explain what the terminals do and these little things when guys go to these terminals. What do you do? Are you talking to a psychologist or psychiatrist on the other side, or are you actually doing like tests and different things? So
those are great questions. Well, the stigma is huge, and it's getting a lot better. You know, 8-10 years ago, when Lou and I would go out and talk to agencies, and we pretty much folks looked at us like we had two heads, you know. And now when you can go in the checkout stand at the grocery store and there are magazines about the brain and how the brain works and neuroplasticity, people understand what that means now. There's a lot more acceptance, but I mean, the stigma's still there. So that's why we called the program. We had to come up with some sort of a name. So we called it Command Performance. That's what this program is called because it's a performance-oriented program. When we go in and brief, we've done hundreds of briefings over the years. And the first thing we let them know, this is not, for better choice of words, a broken cop program. Usually what we find when we introduce it's adopted by the fast teams, the top performers. We got a lot, SWAT, K9, a lot of these folks that say, you know what, we want to get involved with this program because we want to maintain our edge. We see this as a training tool. And that's the way it's positioned. That's the way we approach it. So that's kind of helped us a lot. And we laugh. We had fun when we go in these briefings. Guys make fun of each other. We do a demo. We get to look at somebody's brain. What that's. Oh, we didn't know you had a brain. That's where that all goes, and it's a lot of fun. But we just try to have fun with it and disarm it a little bit and say, guys, this is all about performance. You guys are high performers. This is a voluntary thing if you want to get involved. Something else we found as we work with these agencies is where they put these terminals. It's really just a desk and a display and a hand cradle and a headset and a zero gravity chair. But you don't want to have it down the hall
Commander
from the
aisle.
where the command staff sits. You don't want to have it from internal affairs is down the way, whatever. We want to have it in a way where ideally where people can come in discreetly and do their session and then go home. Even if we have somebody that works for a police department and they don't want anybody in the department to know they're doing it, they could actually access a shared terminal at another fire department, police department, sheriff's department. Nobody in the department would ever know. Because when somebody goes in the system, they just become an anonymous number, HIPAA protected, and nobody knows. We never report any names to command staff. If the chief was to ask if is Bob, one of his guys, Bob Jones, is in the program, we said you have to ask Bob. We're not gonna tell you. So that's helped a lot. We've also seen that some of these have been in offsite professional buildings, churches, places, totally libraries. So it's really important that we give the first responder an opportunity to be anonymous, if they will. That's very important.
Well, I want to chime in on personal experience issues there. First up, the room that I attended was extremely comfortable. I'd say it was a 12 by 12 room, maybe a little bit smaller, with, again, the zero gravity chair in there, the hand cradle, the computer monitor, and so forth. It was not... it didn't scare me away. It was very comfortable. It was a sterile office atmosphere almost, is what I would say. But I forget the point I was trying to get to. But as I mentioned earlier, the whole experience was inviting to me once I started it. I have to admit, at the beginning, I said to myself, well, I'm at the end of my career. I'm going to retire here in 2 years. So what if I get laughed at, poked at, this, that, and the other thing? But I'll tell you, after I started the program and saw the worth of it, and I was able to, well, let me back up here a step. I also did it because I wanted to um, bring back some information. If it was successful and it worked for me, I wanted to bring it back for the rest of the troops that still had a long journey ahead of them and say, hey, you got to do this, which I have passed that word along to a lot of folks, and say, hey, you got to do this. It worked. It again, I'd go to bed 1, 2 in the morning, wake up at 5, rearing to go. I go to sleep now 9, 9:30, wake up at 8, 8:30. I have some long sleeps.
You're
But
making up for lost time.
Yeah.
I am,
Well,
because I lived like that for 30 some years on the go. Time was important, so I made sure I made the most of my days. But I
yeah.
can tell you the program was very inviting and very comfortable, and no shame whatsoever attached to it, and should not be, is what I would
No,
say.
I know that there's an onboarding process that we go through where the first responder has a brief, like a 15-minute interview, and gets a demo of the technology, just make sure they're comfortable with it. They can ask their questions. Alicia's performed a lot of those interviews, and I always know she's doing the interview because she's laughing. Because that conversation is just to get some baseline information, to learn a little bit about the first responder, make sure they understand it, and it's something they want to commit to before we commit to funding the program. And I love the fact that I hear that laughter coming on the other side of the office, because I know that she's talking to somebody and they're having a good time. And I think it's important to start it off on that foot. And to answer your question, when these folks go to these terminals, again, it's basically a desk with a computer screen, and you connect with a brain performance coach who's not a mental health professional. They are trained by the service provider Batania to be able to operate the technology. It's all technology driven, and it's overseen by a clinical psychologist, team leaders, that kind of thing. But it's just great because they are really, as much as anything, they're a coach to help you understand what the program's doing, understand your journey through the 24 weeks, understand maybe, some either your experience. Sometimes there are highs and lows that go with the program as you're working through and as your brain is starting to adjust and making improvements.
And noticing those subtle changes that sometimes
Helping you
people
notice
don't
those.
notice.
Yeah.
They'll never ask you about past trauma or past experiences because that's not really part of the program. So they're not psychologists or psychologists. They're not going to ask you anything like that. But they will say, hey, do you notice if you're sleeping better or if you're more patient? I always laugh because a lot of times people lose their road rage in the program,
Yeah.
and their spouses will mention it. Like, hey, you seem pretty calm, instead of like driving by people and flipping them off. They're just waiting patiently.
I've
We
never
had
done
that. Never. We had one, she was an assistant chief in San Antonio, I think. And she said she was stuck in traffic for 2.5 hours. And she said, I knew the program was working because I was totally okay with being stuck
Yeah.
for 2.5 hours. I was just relaxing. I was thinking. I was listening to the radio. She goes, normally I would have been out of my mind and pulling off to the side of the, going up the side of the road. She goes, I knew right then that the program was really working for me because I just was calm. And that's what we see. Also with the stigma, usually when you talk to people about the ability to sleep, I don't care who you are, because most first responders, Rich, you're not alone, right? Most first responders are sleeping 4 to 5 hours a night on a good night. That's just their average. And I always laugh and say, you don't want to give me a gun and tell me to be nice to people on 4 hours of sleep, because it's just not going to happen. So that's why I'm not a police officer. But I think most people are really interested in getting better sleep. And then all the other kind of magic happens. And so I think that kind of reduces that stigma a little bit.
Well, better sleep does definitely impact performance. And having lived both job descriptions, I was a firefighter for just under 10 years, and then with the sheriff's office for 35. Having lived both occupations, there is definitely a different mindset. You're responding to the same calls, but your brain totally deals with things differently. As an officer, you're always in that hyper alert mode, always on ready to go. Whereas a firefighter, I'm not saying they're not in what they do, but it's a lot lower down the scale. You know, that hyper alert mode. Um, it's a deep seated thing, I would say, where people aren't after you as a firefighter, where they're after a police officer. So officers usually more closed, very tense. Not that they all show it, but it's a deep seated thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, because firefighters are everybody's hero.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
You come in, you save the day. You're great.
Same call.
Same call, but police officers are generally not seen as that because they're asking the questions.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
Why did this happen and how did this happen and who's at fault and whatever. Where the firefighter just comes in and he's the hero, and so it is very different.
Yeah.
I think firefighters struggle from like compassion fatigue because so many of their calls are medical and sometimes not silly, but not life and death. But police officers are more of that trust issue, right? Because they don't trust anybody is really going to have their back. So they're just different issues, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then throw in the military.
Yeah.
Guys that are in combat, and it's not necessarily a combat type of an issue. When I looked into PTSD issues in the military, a good majority of those had developed from head trauma, and there were some issues that they were talking about, and what do you guys do? What's your program? I'm assuming is a little bit different from military for veterans that have those issues. Can they come to you?
Yeah.
And is their program a little different than a first responder program?
Well, that's a great question. Actually, we started off working with military veterans. It is the same program. And of course, we know that many of our first responders were former military as well. I know those guys we met with Friday at Phoenix Fire, 2 of the 4 were former, I think, special operators. But no, they can certainly come to us, and because we can deliver this via teleremote, we can ship equipment to folks. And we get requests all the time. The challenge is finding ways, and we've got some new ideas how to raise money and how to partner with folks to raise money to help their hero access the program. But it is pretty much the same thing. And we found that the core issues that they struggle from or suffer from are similar, let's say, to the first responders.
Yeah. I think
I
think, some people need a little longer, and if we can, we will help do an extension on the program, if they've had extensive combat trauma. And just to mention, we don't do a lot of these, but we do a women's program, and that program is longer, generally because the trauma is sexual and is often started, in youth. And then I don't know that most people know this, but 80% of women in the military have not combat trauma, but sexual trauma from being in the military. And so we have dealt with a lot of women who are veterans, but their trauma is not necessarily combat trauma, but sexual assault trauma. And so we do have that program. Unfortunately, that program is only offered here in Arizona, and you have to live in kind of the Maricopa County area because Batania wants to have eyes on those people, our provider, because oftentimes they are fragile. First responders, like we said, are pretty resilient. They're able to get on with their day-to-day, but sometimes women survivors, they don't have the resilience.
Yeah, safety first for them. But we have done programs with the Air Force Wounded Warrior program in San Antonio. We've dealt with pretty much all of the alphabet agencies inside the Beltway back in DC. And most of those we can't really talk about. We can just say that we work with them, Pentagon threat management folks. So yeah, just pretty much any arm of the service you can think of. We provided programs to some of their folks.
I have 2 questions to ask you, and I don't quite remember my sessions, how it went, but you said there's 24 sessions. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so how do they, 1 a week? How does that go for the duration?
Yeah, it's a great question. The first 12 weeks, the participant...
It's 36 sessions. It's 24 weeks.
Okay.
Oh, that's right.
Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah. So the first 12 weeks, the participant meets with their coach via teleremote twice a week, and those sessions are 10 to 15
Yep.
minutes. And then for the second 12 weeks, they have one session a week. Then in addition to that, there's a wearable device that they can use on their own schedule. They just schedule that through an app on their phone, and they can use that device whenever they want. But as far as scheduling time with a coach, that is done
With the coach.
with the coach. And by nature of the business, a lot of those have to be rescheduled, so there's a lot of flexibility. And there are coaches on all 4 time zones, so early, before shift, late shift, weekends. Our service provider's done a fantastic job just finding ways to accommodate schedules.
Now that you
So,
jog my memory, yes, it was a very
Yeah.
simple process, especially with the phone.
Well, and it's probably since you've done it, it's really streamlined. And again, it's the same process pretty much for everybody now. So
Yeah,
Awesome.
it's pretty
Hey.
slick.
Have you guys reached out to the VA itself to go?
no, we have not. It's a
Our
short-
provider may have. It's just the reason that Heal the Hero exists is because these things are not covered under insurance of any sort at this point. And so the
Right.
program is not inexpensive, and most people can't afford it on their own on a first responder, salary. And so we provide that funding because it's not being provided elsewhere. And that's really the whole reason why
Well, my thought process on the VA, having used the VA system in the last 4 months, they need a little bit of help there. And I learned a little bit about the VA in my experience, as Rich can tell you. I go to the Prescott VA. The Phoenix VA is the hub for Arizona.
Mhm.
Prescott and Tucson don't do surgeries. They send everybody to Phoenix. And it's kind of a disorganized, what we used to call an organized shit show. but what's kind of funny about it is I've met veterans in there with severe PTSD issues. They got a domus, and I always screw the word up, domisaria or something like that, a domicile type thing,
Mhm.
where a vet can check himself in, but they don't have a lot of room there. And as the population in Arizona increases and people move in up here, a lot of veterans are hitting the system. And I think a program like this, if you can present it to the VA, if you're down in Phoenix, I'm assuming, or Mesa or wherever, the Phoenix VA, the director of the Phoenix VA would be the person to reach out to, because that would also help them free up bed space
Mhm.
for people that have to be inpatient care for mental health issues.
Yeah.
And I think that it could actually go a long way, because some of the things that the VA's doing, is kind of crazy. In my career in law enforcement, I've dealt with a lot of vets with PTSD issues. I've dealt with them with drug issues, which probably came from the PTSD issues. But it's like a hopeless feeling for a vet to go there, because you have to wait forever, because there's so many people there that need assistance. And
Yeah.
we had one guy, and I told it on a show before, where he was a vet, lived in Gilbert, and he kind of started giving his stuff away, giving dogs away, everything. And those are red flags.
Yeah.
He went down to a regional park in South Maricopa County on the east side. And They did search in sheriff's office, look for him. I helped look for him. Nope. Next day, found him. He put a gun to his head in front of the helicopter because, it got to that point. And I think that the VA needs to step it up a notch and bring in programs like this so that you can address it before it gets to that point and before, so that people at that point can go into the VA and get inpatient care where these guys that are going in that direction can kind of get detoured, and get help for them because there's a lot out there. I don't know if Rich dealt with any combat vets in the course of his duties and that, but I know that I have guys on my squad I had vets combat, I think 3 or 4 combat vets on my squad, and they would go to the calls. I would send them because they know they've been there.
Right.
And
Joe, with Curly's talk on vets and everything, and as we know, they're in both fire and PD.
right.
Through your provider, have you gotten any feedback that from officers or firefighters that may have been veterans of success stories or things that have changed and helped them reference PTS that you can talk about?
Oh, yeah. Well, yes, the short answer is yes. We have pages and pages and pages of testimonials. We actually do reporting to the governor's office every month, and we have, this last one probably had 20 pages of just testimonial comments from folks in the program. Everything's anonymous, of course, no names.
Yes.
Just agencies. But yes, we do. And to your point, we're always looking at opportunities to get in front of folks. Again, we've had 2 presentations in the Pentagon. We've had presentations to senators. We've had conversations with congressmen. We're always looking at opportunities to get in front of folks and just say, hey, we would love to tell you about this program, what it does, and how it could be part of a bigger solution. Because we're the first ones to say this is just a tool. This is one tool that we find to be highly effective. It's not the only one. It's not the only effective program out there, but we know this program works. That's why Heal the Hero supports it. And so, yes, I love what you said. We continue to fight the fight. And one of these days, we're going to make a breakthrough. I mean, just when COVID hit, we were, as I said, in D.C., and what we try to do is by funding these programs through Heal the Hero to these folks, whether they be first responders in the military, we're trying to allow them to have the experience, because we can talk about this all day long. It makes no difference unless you've had an opportunity to experience it and actually see what it does for you. And it varies. Some people, if it just absolutely changes their lives, saves their lives. It saves multiple lives. We've had that told us firsthand that I would not be here today if it weren't for that program. And other folks say, you know what, it's been pretty good for me. I sleep a little better, I think. I'm a little more calm when I get home. I engage with my family a little bit better. I don't just go and hide in the back office watching TV or scrolling on my computer or interacting with my kids. And hey, if that's the win, that's a win. That's great. It doesn't have to be something that is life-changing, but if it just helps you get your life back a little bit, maybe sleep a little bit. We had a fire chief tell us that young guy, like everybody's young to me, but he's probably
He was young. He was probably 25. I mean, he's young.
no, this chief I was talking about. I won't say which agency he's with, but anyway,
Oh yeah.
he had lived, lived with Red Bull to get going in the morning.
Red Bull and Roller Grill
and
is what
then
I call it.
Roller Grill, cuisine, and then Jack Daniels at night to end the day. And he ended up having a heart attack. And so when he had an opportunity to access the program, and he did it, changed his life. And so he's the one that he said, I want all my guys to do the program. I can't tell you how many chiefs we had that said, I want every one of my guys to do this program. And I said, that's great. We highly recommend that you make it voluntary. Because,
And that was the chief on the Red Bull.
yeah.
Mhm.
You know, a quick little thing on that. When Red Bull first came out, I was a detective. And I was drinking a lot of it. Like by noon, I'd have 10 cans already down me.
My gosh.
And I wasn't feeling good. I was really bouncing, kind of like a tweaker, only in a uniform. But I was bouncing off the wall a little bit, and my chest started hurting. And so I went to the Banner ER, and it happened to be a heart surgeon coming out. And I go, yeah, I don't feel so good. It's hurting. They brought me in, did all the tests, and then said, what did you, how much coffee did you have today? Well, I didn't have any coffee. Well, what'd you do? I said, I've been drinking these Red Bull. He goes, you need to stop that. It'll blow your heart out. And that was when I stopped it. But yeah, I know what you're saying. And you do that stuff to keep going.
Yeah.
To keep up with stuff. You do.
False energy.
Well,
Yeah.
we
A
see
lot
that
of
a
guys.
lot, and we've heard a lot of cases. Again, this is anecdotal. We don't have any studies, but folks who are in the program, that as their mind starts to work a little bit better, as through the slow process of neuroplasticity in your brain operating better, functioning at a more optimal level, then they do things like they tend to exercise more, they eat better. We've heard a lot of folks backing off of drinking.
Just saying, it's just not my go-to when I get home. I just don't drink as much. Not that they're not drinking, they're just not drinking every night to kind of wind it down, because they're able to kind of shift into home mode more quickly. Another thing is we do have, our provider does surveys, and so we do know that stress, anxiety, depression, and symptomology of PTSD is reduced at about 50%.
Wow.
Like 45 to 51% consistently in all of those areas. In first responders and veterans, those seem to be pretty close. It's higher in women survivors because they have higher levels of stress and anxiety and depression because of their trauma. But so we do know that. Back to your conversation about the VA, the problem is the VA is related to the federal government, and they're not going to bring anything in until the feds tell them they can bring it in. And that's where we run up against federal organizations. Like, we've talked to some pretty high people in some different organizations, federal organizations, and nobody will take responsibility. I mean, I hate to say that, but it's just the reality.
The reality of it is when you call there, they go, well, that's not my job. It's so call over here. And then you call there. Who told you to call here? And you get the runaround.
They're afraid if anybody has any negative situation, then it'll be their fault because they were the person that pushed it through, and they won't stand behind this any kind of wellness program. And so we've had a lot of conversations. We've talked to all of the senators in Arizona, staffers. We cannot get past the staffer. No offense to all of our senators in Arizona and representatives. We've really tried to get it on a larger level, but we get down.
I about a year ago, I think now, I had Eli Crane, Congressman Crane, on my show.
Mm-hmm.
To talk about crime issues when it was really bad across the country. But he'd be a good one. He's a vet. He understands. And then there's a Newsmax host on Newsmax, Carl Higbee. He's a vet, and he did a show that I happened to watch talking about the VA and putting in for disability for an injury on, while you're serving, an injury that affects the rest of your life, you get a disability for it. And he was talking about how long it takes, the process for putting in for those types of things, because it's just so much red tape to jump through the hoops, and then they're hoping that you just kind of lose interest, and then you end up doing what a few of the guys do. They say it's not worth it anymore. But
And when you have somebody in trauma, you can't put them through all those hoops, right? I mean, I learned that in United Way, when you're dealing with people that are homeless or they're trying to get off of drugs, you can only have them push, the next number on the phone. If you want to speak to whatever, push this number, and then you get to them. And if you want to speak to whatever, and then people are just like, what the F? And then they stop and they go back and they shut up because they're frustrated. And when you have somebody in trauma, that's just what's going to happen.
I think that's why, as we're talking to these agencies right now, sadly, what we have learned is that too many times, wellness and peer support are kind of like a check the box thing.
Yeah.
That they're doing it because they're supposed to have it, and they have it, and they say they have it. And then you've got other departments and agencies that have leadership that is very interested in the welfare of their people, and they do outstanding jobs. And you can see a tremendous difference going from agency to agency. Sadly, dealing with the funding environment we have right now, more and more is falling on nonprofit agencies like ours to provide funding. We've dealt with large police departments, I can think of, for example, that don't have funds to support their wellness programs. So they're not allocated. So they look for folks like us and say, can you help us? And that's when we say, well, let's see what we can do. We'll go out and see if we can raise the money, provide funding for your programs. And then even beyond that, it's not just all about Heal the Hero and these programs we fund. How can we help you as an organization help your people? And it may not be this exact program, but we just want to help, whether it's this program or whether we can help in some other way. And so that's kind of where we're going right now. That's why we're introducing this new website, because it's going to have a way for people that want to get involved to donate money. And it can be as little or as much as they want to donate. And once we accumulate enough money to fund a program, we start the next first responder or veteran in their program.
And people can do like crowdfunding. You can get a group together and fundraise on a larger scale. Because we do have people that do it. Unfortunately, it's almost always in memory of somebody that they lost. My brother was a firefighter who took his life. And we don't want it to get to that point. I mean, we would like people to do these fundraisers. We're always grateful to have people choose us. But
Joe, what is that website address?
It's www.healthehero.org.
Okay.
And we will forward that link for you to share if you'd like. We're really excited once we've got that new, it's been months getting the new website built, as you can imagine, but it's almost there. And we would love to invite people to take a look at it. And if they want to get a hold of us, we're just, we give you our personal cell phone numbers. You can always call us, text us. We're happy to have a conversation with just about anybody. We like educating. We like advocating on behalf of our first responders and our veterans, and then funding these programs that we know are highly effective. But we just at this stage in our lives and our careers, you see, we work out of a home office. That's why our overhead's super low. We just want to help people, because otherwise we'd be doing something else.
Well, I want to say again, for those that might have tuned in late, having done the study with you guys, it did wonders for my sleep habit. The rest of me probably isn't repairable just because of who I am. My nickname's always been a step and a breath since I was young, because the thought's in and it's gone right away and new conversation starts. But the sleep did wonders for me. And so I thank you guys for having that out there for the first responders.
Yeah,
I know I've said many people do you, and obviously a lot of privacy, so I never checked back with them to see how things went.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, right now we have a bit of a wait list, right? So there's always more people that can use the program than we have funds for. So we're trying to reach out. We have we have a few scholarships that came available, and we're trying to reach out people on the wait list. But the reality is we have a larger wait list than we have the funds. And so it's always that challenge of how to raise enough money to help
Yeah.
the people that need it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Nobody's ever heard about us because we don't advertise, because we have so many people that want to access the program. We hate disappointing people, and we hate having them on a wait list for too long. And yet, if people don't know who we are, then they can't contribute. They can't help us help more people. Something else we found over the course of our work with this large program is the importance of, I say, helping retirees and the suffering that they experience after they separate from their service. And I think that's where a lot of our private donor funds have been going this past year or two, have been the funding programs for retirees.
Yeah.
And we've got a long waiting list, and as soon as we get, can fund more, we've got them plugged in right away.
Great.
And in that case, we generally just ship the equipment to their home.
Because they can't access the departments
the
anymore.
terminals anymore. And then at the end of the program, we just ask them to ship it back so we can put somebody else into the program.
Great.
So it's worked out
Wow.
really well. Yeah.
Well, we're getting close towards the end of the show here, and wow, that's a good program, and we need more stuff like that out there, especially for cops, because like I said at the start of the show, there's a stigma around it that cops don't want to talk about this stuff, and if they can do it anonymously,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
they can address
Yeah.
the issue, because you go from a call where you're there's a death that you dealt with, a kid or something, and then your very next call is some guy complaining about his neighbor, and you go off on him, and then you get a complaint, and they don't know that the call you were just on was involving a dead kid or something like that. And it goes like that, you get a
Accumulates.
call, and then you, like, a couple days later, another one. And
Yeah.
we've talked about it on other shows where law enforcement, for the most part, has what was it, Rich? 800 critical incidents.
In their 20 years, where the average citizen is 1 to 2 in their lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, so when people say, well, that cop's mean, no, he's just got a
Full bucket.
dry attitude. He's not mean,
Yeah, his cup runneth over that day, right? There's
I
too
don't
much.
care how tough you are, you can only take so much. And it's
Yeah, well,
cumulative, and you never know the last thing that's going to be the last straw.
Yeah,
Well,
the
We
the
thank
thing
you
about,
guys for helping us wipe up the mess, that's for sure.
the thing about cops that we talked about on another show with, I can't remember her name.
Susan
Well,
Simon?
We put it in a box. We take each item, each little critical incident to help us move on, and put it in a box somewhere. And then down the road a ways, your box is overflowing. You have nowhere else to put it. It's like an old green screen computer on this side. And, I don't have much memory, so that stuff pops up. And that needs to be dealt with. It really, really does. So,
Yeah, and that's what this program does. It helps to open all those doors in your mind, get all of that clutter out, flush it out so that you can go ahead and start fresh and move on.
Well, we thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I get
So we'll get your link on our website. We hope we can help you out and
Thank
get
you.
the word out to the masses out there to help themselves, because it's
Thank you.
needed, as
Thank
we
you.
know.
Thank you for what you do. We appreciate
we
you.
appreciate
Thank
you guys.
yeah, I got to go push buttons. Hang on.
Yeah, Curly plays producer and host today when his producer's not there. But
Way to go, Curly.
we'll sign off. If you guys want to stay on and chat for a minute after it goes silent, we'll let you know when.
Okay,
Yeah, I think we're.
we'll wait for this a second. Oh, the Cardinals are not winning.